He started the round. Oh, big shot.
People, hello, how are we? Hopefully we're all doing well. I'm Tom. As you've just seen, that was Frazer Clarke versus Fabio Wardley 1. We're about to see Frazer Clarke versus Fabio Wardley 2. Battle of Britain, somewhat. I suppose it kind of is the Battle of Britain because it is for the British heavyweight title. Fabio Wardley is the current champion, defending that against Frazer Clarke. Now, a little bit of background. The first fight did go down as a draw. Did I think it was the draw? I don't know. I haven't watched it back, to be totally honest with you, for a while. It's one of those fights where what I do know is that I thought neither fighter deserved to lose. You never want to see a draw. Of course you don't. And that's not going to change. I didn't want to see a draw, but at the same time, if Fabio Wardley came away with the win, you would have felt a bit bad for Frazer Clarke. And if Frazer Clarke came away with the win, you would have felt a bit bad for Fabio Wardley. They both left it all in the ring. They both put everything on the line. And that's all I can really ask from a fan's perspective, from an entertainment point of view. They delivered knockdowns, point deductions, fights, brutal fights, right up to the last bell, to the point where, you know, Frazer Clarke was slumped down in his corner, that exhausted. And I heard Fabio Wardley kind of almost trying to use it against him in the face-off, saying, well, you were slumped down and I wasn't. And it's almost like, well, why weren't you? I don't know why you're using that as an insult. You gave it your all and I didn't. Well, hang on a second. You left everything in that ring and you couldn't have done more. You did yourself proud and I didn't. It's like, well, I don't really see the insult there. It's like, yeah, he did. He gave it his everything, gave it his all, went to go sit on the ropes slipped, and he was stumped on the floor. Maybe if you gave it that much, you'd have won. You know what I mean? If that's your attitude, and you're sitting there going, I could have given more. But that's neither here nor there. They gave it their all, whether they want to admit it or not. It was a phenomenal fight, a really, really fantastic fight. And it went down as a draw, and I'm not mad at all. It really is almost deserving of, rather than looking at it as neither fighter wins, almost look at it as both fighters win. And now we go into the second one, and I got a few questions I'm looking forward to getting answered. If I'm honest with you, I'm really unsure. Like I said in my Bivol versus Beterbiev prediction, if there was ever a fight to predict a draw, this is probably it. This is probably that fight. I'm not going to predict the draw. That's quite boring. But if there ever was a fight to predict the draw, it's going to be this one. That said, like I say, I'm not going to. The questions I want answered are as followed. One, has Frazer Clarke has Fabio Wardley reached his ceiling? I'm reluctant to say ceiling because, of course, he can always learn. But we've seen Fabio Wardley have those fights before, those kind of life and death fights, really giving it all. And from that, we saw what level he was at. We didn't see Frazer Clarke have that fight before. Now Frazer Clarke has had that fight. Now Frazer Clarke has had that absolute brutal war. I kind of wonder, how much will his game come on from that? Because we needed to see Frazer get in there, really mix it up, really get pushed by a good heavyweight. And does it bring his game on leaps and bounds? We've seen it with a lot of guys. You know, Daniel Dubois is no exception. You see him in against Hrgovic, Jarrell Miller, tough performances, and he goes and knocks out AJ. Is Frazer Clarke going to be in that kind of camp where he gives it his all, he really goes for it, really goes at it, and as a result of that, he just comes on leaps and bounds? I get the feeling he might be. I get the feeling this would have done him so well for his career, and I don't know how well it would have done Fabio Wardley. And it's making me want to go with Frazer. On the flip side, Fabio Wardley, we've seen him go up against people, go up against other heavyweights, have this kind of battle of we're going to slug this out and we're just going to see who the last man standing is. And Fabio Wardley wins with relative ease. Look at the David Alale fight and how that went. That was exactly that. We're going to slug this out and there'll be one of us left standing. And it was Fabio Wardley pretty easily. When we saw him not able to do that, against the likes of a Frazer Clarke, he didn't like it. He didn't like it. And that, again, makes me think, if you're going to go in there again and do this, I think that favours Frazer Clarke. I think now he's done it, now he knows it, I think that favours Frazer Clarke. Then you look at the amateur pedigree. And look, amateur is a different game to professional game. Of course it is. There's no denying that. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that experience, that knowledge that we've seen Frazer Clarke be able to level up won't translate into this fight here. And that makes me think again, Frazer Clarke. But then I also think he did give it his all, didn't he? What more at his age, after that performance and after trying that hard in that fight, have you got left to give? You can't have much left. You gave it your all. You left everything in that ring. You left no stone unturned. You gave everything in that fight. How do you improve from that? I don't think game plan is going to be enough, because I think Fabio Wardley's going to have his game plan. And I actually think Fabio Wardley is going to stand a better chance at executing that game plan. I think because of the type of fighter Fabio Wardley is, he's going to have a better chance of executing that game plan than Frazer Clarke is. And that's why I think maybe a Fabio Wardley. This really, really is a tough fight to predict. But that's the beauty of it. That's why it's such a good fight. And I'm still quite upset we didn't get to see it on British soil. I get it. I get it. The money side of things. Them headlining a show won't get as much money as what they're going to get in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And I understand that. Fair enough to them. Go and get your money. But it didn't have to be a headline event. It could have been on the AJ Dubois undercard, and it wasn't. It's a bit upsetting. But we move on. We're going to see it this Saturday. A fantastic fight. How do I see it going? And I don't know if I'm ready to make this prediction yet. This is why I'm kind of toing and froing. And even as I make this video, I'm almost convincing myself, if there ever was a draw to go for, probably this one. But I really can see somehow Frazer Clarke getting knocked out. I think now Fabio Wardley's been in there and he knows what he's up against and he's done it before. He's going to have the game plan, the tactics to be able to break down a Frazer Clarke. And if I'm right in saying Fabio Wardley's with Ben Davison, and Ben Davison's good at that sort of strategic game plan analysis, he's going to be able to tell Fabio Wardley how to break Frazer Clarke down. And I think that will be invaluable information. And I think really, in my head, I'm going a Fabio Wardley stoppage. I don't know how. I think Fabio Wardley, because of his lack of amateur pedigree, because of his lack of experience in boxing, I think he's got a lot to learn. And I think he's got a few more levels to go up. And I think a fight against Frazer Clarke, like the first one that we saw, is going to help him do that. It's going to really springboard him up those kind of ranks a bit. Like I say, we're used to seeing him going in there against and having shootouts and just rolling people over. And he didn't do that. And because he didn't do that, I think he will go on leaps and bounds because of that. I think he'll learn a lot, be able to add a lot to his game from that. Whereas Frazer Clarke, as I say, because he's got this amateur pedigree, I don't know how much more he'll be able to at his age. So I think Fabio Wardley's actually going to learn more from the first fight and go in there and get the stoppage. And even though I think that, I'm going to go Frazer Clarke. As soon as that first fight, I went Fabio Wardley, by the way, to win the first fight. I remember I chose Fabio Wardley to beat Frazer Clarke in the first fight. Yeah, I'm 90% sure. I might have chose Frazer Clarke based off his amateur experience. But I think I went Fabio Wardley. I think I went Fabio Wardley because we'd seen him in there against tougher opposition. And I remember either way, when the fight finished, I said to myself, that was Fabio's only chance. That was Fabio's only chance to beat Frazer Clarke, and he didn't do it. I remember as soon as the fight finished, that was my initial reaction. That was Fabio Wardley's only chance to beat Frazer Clarke, and he didn't do it. He's not going to do it now. And I kind of stand by it. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but something's saying that was Fabio Wardley's only chance to get the win over Frazer Clarke, and he didn't do it. He wasn't able to do it. So for that reason, I'm going to go Frazer Clarke. On points or stoppage, I don't know. I'm going to go points. I'm going to go Frazer Clarke on points. I wouldn't be surprised to see a late fight stoppage. Either way, I think this fight goes beyond 8 rounds. Either way, no matter who wins, I think this fight goes past 8. I want to say Fabio Wardley by stoppage, but I'm going to say Frazer Clarke on points. Only because, like I said, I finished that first fight, I watched that first fight, and I said to myself, that was Fabio Wardley's only chance. He didn't do it then, he's not going to do it again, because that was Frazer Clarke's first real test, and you learn a lot from that. Equally, I think reality of it is Fabio Wardley probably learned more about Frazer than Frazer did about Fabio in that fight, and will now have the tools. But that's my official prediction, people. Frazer Clarke on points. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. A lot of rambling there, but hopefully you liked it nonetheless. Make sure you leave a like, a comment, subscribe, people. You know how YouTube works. Peace.